This is another wet fly from Ray Bergman's Trout. This is called the Ingersol. It's a pretty little pattern, more of an attractor style pattern. I don't think this is tied to represent any actual bugs or anything in the water, with a bright orange on it. I'm not certain where it gets its name or the history of this fly. I used a fine chenille for the body on this. You can use a medium chenille if you want, but the rib on this is a gold tinsel. It's a size 16 and 18, and if I use a medium chenille, the rib tends to get buried in it, so I went with the fine. If you wanted to thicken it up and have something that looked a little bit juicier, meatier, tastier, I don't know, go with a thicker chenille. So that's the Ingersol. I'll get started tying. I'm going to start the Ingersol with the hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 and a size 6 standard wet fly hook. I'm going to debarb the hook. I'll attach my thread. For thread, I'm using Danville 6/0 in black. I've already waxed the thread, and I'm going to put a base layer of thread down along the hook shank to just past the point of the hook to tie in the tail. I'm using a black thread because it's a chenille body and I don't have a floss that I have to be concerned about darkening up. Now the tail on the Ingersol, the recipe calls for pheasant, but you could also use a bronze mallard. Back in the day they called it a brown mallard. I'm going to use just some regular mallard flank. This is regular gray natural mallard flank that's been dyed brown. I'm going to take maybe 10, 12 barbs, get those perpendicular to the rachis so that the tips are more or less evened up. Peel those off. I'm going to tie that in so that they're about the length of the shank, maybe from behind the eye of the hook to the bend. I like the tails a little bit longer. There's no tip on this. The body is just some orange chenille and a gold tinsel rib. For tinsel, I'm using a Danville. This is a size 16-18, silver and gold Mylar tinsel. I want the gold side up, so I'm going to tie this in with the silver side up right now. And then that will flip over to the gold side. For chenille, I'm using just a rayon chenille. This is in a fine size chenille, and it's an orange. I'm going to strip some of the fluff off the ends of this. Tying the core fibers in. Get a little bit cleaner. You can see it's kind of sliding around on me a little bit there, so just take your time with it. Make certain you got it positioned right, tied in right where you want it to be. I'm going to advance my thread forward to about an eye length behind the eye of the hook. Taking my hackle pliers, I'm going to twist up the chenille a little bit, and then I'll apply the chenille and the rib. evenly spaced wraps of the tinsel to get my rib. You want to be careful not to crowd the eye on this because we have a wing and a hackle to tie in and apply to the fly. The wing is a mottled turkey, just a kind of a brown mottled turkey. Got my slips already cut, so I'm going to match those up. I want to make certain I get the tips even on these. Meaning I want to make certain that both the tips match up. And then I'll make certain I have the right width. One barb on this one that's just a little bit longer. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it. Once I have those the way I want them, that's a little bit long. See if I can't take that out of there. Well, that tore up the whole thing, so I'm just going to cut a new one. You'll notice that these are just a little finer on the ends here than the other feather that I have, and that's why I'm getting that kind of that extra fine tip to it. So I'll cut the one slip out, the other side, peel that off. Probably just going to have to go with this. Match those up. Peel that off. And yep, okay, that's a little better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. They both kind of have a little bit of a point to them. But I'm going to go with that. So I'll get those so that the tips are about halfway down. That extra fine tip's going to make it a little bit longer, but we're going to go with that. Pinch wrap. Take your time with this step. Make certain that you're getting this to come down to the hook shank. Get that nice and secured. Trim away the excess. Now we want to clean this up a little bit for a brown hackle that we're going to put on right here. I'm using a brown hen. These are just some nice long brown hackles. The length on these are really, really nice. The barb length on them, these are also very, very nice. And it just takes a few wraps to get the collar, so I don't have to put in 4 or 5 wraps. Securing the tip, I'll stroke those barbs in a rearward direction and trim away the excess. Anchoring that tip in. I'll leave my thread on the back side of the head. That way each wrap of hackle will kind of, the thread will help kind of push that rachis and the feather backwards. I only need, as I said, about 3, maybe 4 turns with this. There's one complete turn. Second. 1/3, and I'll bring it right up on my side and get kind of 3 1/2. Screw that in. Sweeping all those hackle fibers and that rachis rearward. I'll start wrapping down right behind the eye of the hook, working in a rearward direction. Get about half the head in there, and then I can take that rachis and pop that off. Tidy that up just a little bit. Complete the head. I'm going to flatten this. Put in my whip finish. Did crowd that eye just a little bit. Certainly still very fishable. Trim away my thread. A little bit of head cement on both sides. Now I'll come back and I'll put a couple coats of black lacquer on that, and our Ingersol will be complete. As I mentioned before, it's just a handsome little fly. It's a nice little tractor pattern. Good fly for working with a turkey. I still seem to struggle with that sometimes. Finding the right turkey feather, shape and size of feather to get the wings that I'm looking for seems to be eluding me. So I'm still working on that. But there's the Ingersol. Thanks for watching today.
Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.